Hey guys, Mystic here, back for another video, or new player video. And this time the topic will be runes and rune crafting. Now we're going to kind of keep it pretty short because there's a lot more you can do with runes as you get closer to 50 and after you hit 50. But for the most part, you should at least be aware of this while you're leveling, because throughout your leveling process you are going to be receiving some runes as as quest rewards, just random drops from mobs, or you might actually be using it as one of your professions to actually create runes. So here's what you want to do. You're going to get a quest, I think about like level 5 or so, that's going to introduce you to putting a rune in your gear. Now question is actually, what are runes? How do you put them in your gear? How do you actually create runes? So let's kind of tackle what is a rune. A rune is, if you played it, like for example World of Warcraft, there was a profession called enchanting. And enchanting would basically add additional bonus stats to your gear. Well, using that comparison, we can say that runes do the exact same thing. They'll add to your gear, either armor or a weapon, additional stats for your particular class. Now, there are certain types of runes by element, right? So we got like fire, water, air, etc. We'll take a look at those in just a minute here. So that's what runes are. They're a way to increase the stats on your gear. Now, how do you actually, what does a rune look like in your inventory? Well, if you've been leveling, got past level 5, you should have received a reward that gives you a rune, and it looks like this. So press I to bring up inventory. And you see here, this is a lesser logic rune of vigor. Increases your vigor rating by 80, and this one does critical mitigation by 80. That's another logic rune. Here's a water rune, right? And it says basic here, and we'll get into that in a second. This one is multi-hit rating, right? And then up here we have strike through rating right here. Okay, so those are what runes look like in your inventory. How do you actually put them into your gear? Well, if you press P to bring up your player profile, what you'll do is, not every piece of armor has a rune slot to it, and you can do a few things to add rune slots to it, but for the most part while you're leveling, you don't want to actually add rune slots to your gear. If there's a rune slot in your gear and you have a rune that fits that, or if part of your crafting process you have some runes that you want to throw in, fantastic. So let's see what gear I have that has a rune slot, and can I do anything with it? So my weapon here, you see there's already one rune in there with 80 deflect chance rating. For some reason I put a tanking rune in here, but there's also, you see at the bottom, it says open air slot, so there's another one I can use there. There's nothing here on your energy shield. There will never be a rune for your energy shield. For your masks here, I have an open logic slot and an open water slot. My shoulders, I have a open well, I did have an open earth slot, which I filled with 117 max health, and I also have an open air slot here too. These items here, weapon attachments, support system, and implant, there's no runes that are added to these. Your chest, I have actually open life slot. My arms here, I actually have, or hands, I actually have an open fire slot. My legs here, I have an open logic slot. And my boots here, I have an open earth slot. Again, your gadget, no rune, and obviously your crafting, or in this case my mining weapon here, and this is for my attunement key. So this is how you know you have a piece of gear that has a rune slot on it. So let's say, for example, if we look at this chest piece here. Now, how do I actually add a rune to a piece of gear? Well, you can do it two ways, right? You can be out in the field, and if you mouse over the item and you hold down Shift key and you right click it, you'll actually see that you have link to chat, preview item, and edit runes. Now if I left click on edit runes, this is the interface that comes up. In here you see I have, this is the life rune, and if I click on it, it'll actually show me, oh, I don't have anything in my bag that matches this particular rune. Now here's what you can do too. You see here, we can re-roll the rune set. Now this is for later on down the road, right? Right now, because we're under 50 or so, we're doing service tokens to do this. So I could physically change this life rune to a water slot, fire slot, air slot, and it cost me 6 service tokens. And we talked about service tokens in our currency video. Also here, I can add another rune slot, right? So I can actually add another specific element rune slot here if I wished, or I can actually make it random, which I'm not sure why random costs more. Actually, that's actually a copper, sorry. So if I added this one here, now I have a fire rune slot. Now, if I click on this, again, I don't have anything in my inventory that matches. So there's nothing really I can do with this particular rune. Now up here, you see this is the rune crafting interface, but all I can do right now is just edit runes. I can't create runes. I can't create rune sets. Okay, so let's find another piece of gear that I have. So P again, and we'll see. We didn't have any fire. We had a logic slot, I think. So shift, right click, edit rune. You see here now, click this button. Now, if I do have a rune in my inventory, it will show up here in this interface. So here we have vigor. And here we also have mitigation. So building off this tank profile here, we could do mitigation. And then once you click on it, it'll ask you, are you sure you want to add this? And we'll say yes. And all of a sudden, this now will be added to my particular piece of gear. So that's how you can actually do it when you're in the field, you've gotten a rune, and you want to add it to your armor that you have a slot for. Now, if you're actually doing the crafting portion and doing rune crafting, you're going to look for a station that has this symbol above it, and this is the station. Now, these stations they're going to be in obviously in your capital city. They're going to be in particular zone areas, right? So this one here, I went the northern waste Algarock path here. So you see here, I'm down here in the excavation base camp. You see right up here, not the actual base camp itself, but above it, this is actually where the rune crafting station is. Now, when you get to a rune crafting station, you can actually create your own runes, right? So this comes from like mining and relic hunting, I think. Don't quote me on that. I'll look and get clarification for you on that. But nonetheless, this is how the runes are basically kind of like what they group themselves into, right? Water, life, air, fire, logic, and earth. Then you have fusion, which is a combination of all the elements, and fusion runes can go into any slot. So if you have a fusion rune in your inventory, regardless of the element type, it can actually fill that position. So let's say, for example, you wanted to create this water rune because you wanted multi-hit. So you see here, it'll tell you what you need to actually craft this is you need to have sign of water, and you need to have rune fragments. Once you have all of that, you can actually craft that. Let's see if there's anything here that I can actually craft. I do not have these rune fragments. Now, don't get discouraged. If you actually have these elements, but not the actual fragments, those are pretty easy to purchase from a crafting vendor. So once you actually have what you need, you'll hit craft, and it'll actually create that rune for you. That rune will go into your inventory. Again, you'll press P to bring up your player interface. You'll find the corresponding element that you've just crafted in your rune, or the rune that you just crafted that element, what piece of gear you want to put into. Hold on the shift key, right click on the item, edit rune. Rune comes up. You can click the drop down, and you can see here I do actually have a multi-hit one here. So I can say yes to that, and there it's done, right? Now, if I wanted to, I could always re-roll this particular slot here to a different element. And you see here what the costing is. And that would basically change this rune to a different rune. And then I could add a rune from my inventory into this particular position. So that's rune crafting, what you want to focus on. You're going to want to get familiar with this as you're leveling, because when you get to level 50, we can talk about the runes that you want. We're going to have class specific runes. We're going to have common runes. So just to kind of give you like a high level what like the end game level 50 stuff looks like. If you wanted to do tanking, right? You want to be a tank for raiding, whatever. What you'll see is, when you get into like the so if you get back into the runes here, let's get back to the rune station. right here, we're going to go to set runes, and let's say we want to do some tanking. So what we would basically be looking at in terms of ruining our gear out would be under this set here for alleviation. And you can see here, this is basically going to tell us what our bonuses are. Now, this is the set runes have bonuses. So if I have 2 pieces of this in my gear anywhere, I will not only get the base stat here, which is 100 or 360 max health. I'll also get the plus 1.05 critical mitigation. And you see that goes all the way down to 6 pieces in your stuff. Now, remember, you have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things you can actually put runes into. But remember, each piece of gear can have from 1 rune slot to as many as 6. So this is where you get into like, well, if you have 6 pieces, right? So if I go over here and I say I have 6 power into this, gives me 1.65 critical mitigation as well as the things under it. Into one piece of gear, I can actually put 6 of these runes into it. So that's very high level like raid gear stuff. So, but you probably won't also be using like these basic set rune stuff. You'd be probably looking more into like you can see here, we can swap this around too. You'd probably be doing more like fusion runes and things like that. But nonetheless, that's kind of like, you know, where you can head with, or the direction you can move in terms of putting runes into your gear. But just want to get you guys a quick primer on runes, why it's important to pay attention to that, how to actually rune your gear, how to create runes if you actually want to do that on the early levels, and when you get to 50, things to look for as you're leveling through the process. So here's our fusion runes here. See, now one last bit here too, guys. So this is much further looking, right? So you see here on this particular rune here, Storm Talon's Eye. See, it requires item level is 120, but it requires a level of 50. So at certain runes, you're going to have requirements, either a item level requirement, a level requirement. So you're not going to be able to take like if you have like another character who's basically doing raiding and you're making a new character, you're not going to be able to put like these high power fusion runes into your alt when they're a lower level, right? So there are going to be some restrictions. So those are more things we can talk about in depth. But for now, this has been the introduction to runes, where you get them, how to make them, how to rune up your gear, why it's important, and what you need to do if you want to actually make them yourselves. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, this is Mystic. I stream on Twitch at Mystic813. So follow me there on Twitch, or leave a comment or question in the comment section of the video here, and I'll look into getting back to you on that front. Till the next video, guys, I hope you're having fun in WildStar, and I hope these videos have been somewhat helpful for you as you're leveling up.